I don't think you can say that there's a global trend towards Bushism around the world. I think the trend is still very pro-American, but rejecting the policies of the Bush administration. Any poll you look at dramatically shows that. But they're very pro-American still. The more troubling trend, actually, in my view, is the reduction of the stability and democracy in a lot of these countries. If you look at Russia, for instance, Putin has eviscerated the opposition, imprisoned and poisoned his political oppositions, thrown journalists, not him personally, but his policies have allowed this to happen. Poisoning people in London, I mean, that's 18th century stuff. No one's ever been, well, they arrested some scapegoats for that. And self-appointing his successor and keeping himself in the powerful position of prime minister, and he's 70% approval rating. Why is that? It's because, you know, people are nervous and they want a strong leader that makes the trains run on time. That's scary. Look at Venezuela. Latin America, 55% of the people say they'd take a dictator if it would fix the economy again. So I look at these trends less as a, you know, whenever you travel abroad, I'm always so surprised that people don't put the United States at the center of their opinions. You know, we're here, we're America, we think everyone thinks of us first. That's not how they think abroad. If you go and ask the average voter in France why they voted for Sarkozy, Bush wouldn't even come up in the discussion. But I do think that the larger trends are troublesome around the world in terms of the weakness of democracy and the need to make sure that the pillars of democracy are established, and it's much broader than just a vote. A vote is one piece of a democracy, but you can have a perfect vote and still have a failed democracy. And that's what you're seeing more and more around the world.
Ambassador Soderberg, how do you assess a preemptive war as an instrument of foreign policy?
It's an essential tool of a preemptive war. We've done it in the past. The British actually did it in the United States in the 1700s to chase out some Canadians. A preemptive war it makes a lot of sense if it's done right. You need to have, if you have an imminent threat that's out there and you want to go after it and move it forward, we should and we can and we always will. The question is, with respect to the Iraq War, was it an imminent threat? And no. If you look at, I was in the U.S. government from 93 to 2001 getting all of the intelligence, and it was pretty clear that Saddam Hussein did not have nuclear weapons. If you look at the stockpiles that were unaccounted for, the general assumption was that he had some chemical or biological weapons. The inspectors had been pulled out in 98, so you didn't really know. The inspectors went back in January, and we're just getting going when we pulled the plug and invaded Iraq in March. Well, then we invade and we look around, Lord, there's no weapons of mass destruction. Why is that? It's because the policy of containment had Saddam Hussein in such a tight box, and we periodically would conduct operations against any suspected sites. It's called Operation Desert Fox. It was essentially targeting any suspected weapons site, and we just took it out. Guess what? It worked. So you can't argue that the Iraq War was a preemptive war because there was no imminent threat. But the tool is one that is essential to American security, and absolutely, if Iran, for instance, really is going to be a threat, someone will take a preemptive strike and resolve that issue. I think the trick is to not get there. But if you have a threat, particularly with the terrorism, if we get information that we're about to get hit again like on 9/11, you better hope we take a preemptive strike. So, done right, it's an essential tool.
Ambassador, I certainly recognize that the United States is huge, wealthy, and powerful, but I'm challenged with the global community expecting us to provide, expecting and believing that we can provide the leadership to solve international problems when we've struggled so much to solve our domestic issues. So if we look at world poverty, certainly that's an overwhelming issue, but in the United States we struggle to raise millions of American citizens out of dire poverty. It's hard to even know where to look at or begin to address the issue of global health issues. And yet here in the United States, we have not solved the health care issues. So why are we so positioned to solve these huge global issues when we struggle with our domestic issues, and what is our moral authority to provide that leadership?
Well, I think we actually still are the United States of America with enormous global moral authority. It's been severely eroded in the last 7 years. But fundamentally, I'll come back to that, our own Constitution and what we provide is, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is what everybody wants. And we still are the symbol. I love the story of Tiananmen Square when the Chinese democracy activists in 1989 erected their symbol of peace and democracy. What was it? In the middle of Tiananmen Square. We're the only ones that they would emulate. Who today would build the Statue of Liberty? Nobody. But we can get there again if we stop these kind of mistakes that we've done, and I think even the Bush administration has shifted away from them. It's a very different second term than the first, and the ideologues are gone, with the exception of the vice president. Condi Rice has nothing but career folks around her now, the John Boltons of the world, and those who are pursuing an ideological approach that was not based on facts. And you get back to a fact-based driven foreign policy, and people are beginning already to appreciate what we're doing better. On the health issue, we don't have to personally solve the global health issue, but we do need to lead the effort on AIDS and poverty reduction with the right policies. We pay our fair share. We already pay our fair share on much of that. But by setting the policies on solving some of these, if we can solve the Arab-Israeli peace process, that will help reduce, extremism around the world and help address some of the other issues of reform that are needed there. But at home, I'm not a domestic health care expert by any stretch of the imagination, but our health care system is broken. It doesn't work. And that affects our own prosperity here at home. So there's two separate things in a way. We need a health care system that works and delivers for the American people here, not just people who can afford to buy insurance, because middle America can't. But then there's the whole issue of the global healthcare crisis and the AIDS question. If we don't address some of that, they're going to come back and make our health problems worse. AIDS started in Africa, is now here. You've got the Asian bird flu is now here. It's a global world. The way people travel and jet set around, and it's one world now, so we can't inoculate ourselves from that. But I wouldn't be so depressed about it. I think actually this is the advantage of being a lone superpower is we are the most powerful nation on earth. Some people think China may catch up with us in 200 or 300 years, but for the next couple hundred years, it's us. When we get it wrong, it doesn't work. When we get it right, it's amazing how powerful we are. Let me just say thank you, and I'm happy to sign books outside if anyone would like them. And for those listening, it's you can get the Prosperity Agenda on Amazon.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much again, Ambassador Soderberg. Today at the City Club of Cleveland Forum, we have been listening to Ambassador Nancy Soderberg, author of the Prosperity Agenda. Thank you, Ambassador Soderberg. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and this forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.